Maya Johnson had $1 left to her name when she made the decision that would change everything. The Hell's Angel standing next to the broken Harley looked terrifying. Massive frames, tattoos covering every inch of visible skin, patches that made grown men cross the street. His phone was dead, his wallet was gone, his mother was dying in a hospital 2 hours away. Maya stared at her last dollar bill. She needed it for tomorrow's bus fare to work. Without it, she'd have to walk 8 miles and risk losing her job. But this stranger needed gas money to reach his mother before it was too late. Maya walked over and handed him her final dollar without saying a word. What she didn't know was that this single act of kindness would bring someone to her door the very next day. Someone who would prove that when you give everything you have to help a stranger, the universe has a way of giving everything back. Tomorrow, her world would change forever. But first, let's see what led Maya to that gas station on what should have been the worst night of her life. 24 hours earlier, Maya's alarm screamed at 5 a.m. in her cramped studio apartment in East Oakland. The water stain on the ceiling had grown bigger overnight. She checked her phone. Account balance $1.47. Rent was due tomorrow. She was $200 short. Maya worked 2 jobs that barely kept her afloat. Morning shift at Henderson's Diner, where she'd been Employee of the Month 6 times, but still made $2.13 an hour, plus whatever tips customers felt generous enough to leave. Evening shift at Pine Grove Senior Care Center, where she genuinely loved the elderly residents who had become like family to her. The nursing school acceptance letter stared at her from the refrigerator, pinned there for 2 years like a cruel joke. Tuition, $15,000. At her current savings rate of maybe $50 a month, she'd be 40 before she could afford it. Her dreams felt as far away as the moon. Her mother called from Atlanta every Sunday with the same gentle suggestion. "Baby, maybe it's time to be realistic about those dreams. Come home, find a nice man, settle down." But Maya refused to give up. Every elderly resident she helped bathe, every customer she served with a genuine smile despite their sometimes cruel comments about her neighborhood, her accent, her dreams, it all fed her determination to become a nurse someday. At the diner that morning, she watched Mr. Rodriguez count pennies for his usual coffee. The elderly man's hands shook as he came up 15 cents short. Maya had seen this routine 3 times this week. Without hesitation, she pulled $1 from her tip jar and slid it across the counter. "Coffee's on me today, Mr. Rodriguez." His weathered face lit up with gratitude. "Mija, you're too kind. I'll pay you back." They both knew he wouldn't. They both knew she didn't expect him to. Her co-worker Jennifer shook her head as she watched the exchange. "Girl, you can't save everyone when you're drowning yourself. That $1 could have been your lunch money." Maya shrugged. "He needed it more than I needed lunch." But Jennifer was right. Maya's stomach had been growling for 2 hours. She'd eat the free crackers from the condiment station and call it breakfast. At Pine Grove that evening, Maya stayed late helping Mrs. Patterson write a letter to her estranged son in Portland. The 84-year-old woman had been trying to reconnect with her only child for months, but her arthritis made writing nearly impossible. "You don't have to stay, sweetheart," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "I know you don't get overtime for this." "Some things are more important than money," Maya replied, gently guiding the elderly woman's hand across the paper. The letter was simple but heartfelt. "I'm sorry we fought. I love you. Please come home before it's too late, Mrs." Patterson had tears in her eyes as Maya sealed the envelope. "You're like the daughter I never had." Maya's heart broke a little. Mrs. Patterson was like the grandmother she'd lost 5 years ago. The weight of everyone else's problems pressed down on Maya's shoulders as she finally left work at 9 p.m. The eviction notice taped to her apartment door that morning felt like a ticking bomb. Her car insurance had lapsed because she couldn't afford the renewal. Her phone service was hanging by a thread. Maya had been walking to work to save the $2 bus fare, using that money instead to buy a small coffee that she nursed for hours while studying nursing textbooks at the diner during slow periods. She was one crisis away from losing everything, one missed shift from homelessness, one emergency from complete financial collapse. But Maya kept giving anyway, to Mr. Rodriguez, to Mrs. Patterson, to anyone who needed her help more than she needed her last few dollars. Her friends called her naive. Her mother called her foolish. Her co-workers called her too kind for her own good. Maya called it being human. That evening, counting her tips from both jobs, Maya stared at her final dollar in quarters and dimes. One crumpled bill that represented the difference between eating tomorrow and going hungry. Between taking the bus to work and walking 8 miles in whatever weather awaited. She needed this dollar for tomorrow's bus fare. Without it, she'd have to walk to both jobs, risking being late, risking getting fired from the only income keeping her barely afloat. Maya folded the dollar carefully and put it in her pocket. She'd use it for gas instead. Just enough to get to the grocery store and back, maybe pick up some discount bread and peanut butter to stretch through the week. As she walked to her beat-up Honda, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. She just had no idea how right she was. What Maya didn't know was that in less than an hour, she'd face the biggest decision of her life. A choice between her last dollar and a stranger's desperate need. A choice that would test everything she believed about kindness, sacrifice, and what it really means to help others when you can least afford to help yourself. That's when a phone call changed everything, and put Maya on a collision course with the most important decision of her life. Maya's phone buzzed as she reached her Honda in the Pine Grove parking lot. The caller ID showed Jennifer from the diner. "Maya, thank God you answered. It's Mrs. Patterson. She collapsed in her apartment. The paramedics just took her to the county general. She keeps asking for you." Maya's heart dropped. Mrs. Patterson lived alone in a tiny apartment 3 blocks from the care center. No family nearby, no emergency contacts except Maya. "What happened?" Maya asked, already fumbling for her car keys. "Her neighbor found her on the kitchen floor. Looks like she fell trying to reach something on a high shelf. She's conscious but scared. Maya, she won't let them treat her until she sees you. She thinks she's dying and wants to say goodbye." Maya's hands shook as she tried to start her car. The engine turned over weakly, coughed, then died. She tried again. Nothing. "I'll be right there," Maya promised, though she had no idea how. On the 4th try, the engine finally caught. Maya's gas gauge needle sat firmly on empty, a red warning light glowing ominously on her dashboard. She had maybe 10 miles left in the tank if she was lucky. County General Hospital was 12 miles away. Maya stared at her last dollar bill. She could put it in her tank, maybe buy half a gallon of gas. Enough to reach the hospital, but definitely not enough to get back home. And tomorrow she'd have no bus fare, no way to get to work. But Mrs. Patterson needed her. Maya drove toward County General, watching her gas gauge like a countdown timer. Every mile felt like borrowed time. The engine started sputtering as she pulled into the Shell station at the halfway point. She had no choice. That dollar was going into her tank. Maya parked at pump number 4, under the harsh fluorescent lights. The station looked deserted except for a teenage clerk behind bulletproof glass and a massive figure hunched over a motorcycle near pump 2. Even from a distance, the man looked dangerous. Black leather vest covered in patches that Maya couldn't read but somehow understood meant trouble. His shoulders were broad enough to block out the neon sign behind him. Tattoos covered every visible inch of skin. Maya tried to ignore him as she prepared to pump her measly dollar's worth of gas. But then she heard him curse loudly and kick his motorcycle. The bike was beautiful. A sleek black Harley-Davidson that probably cost more than Maya made in a year. But it wasn't starting. The man pulled out his phone, stared at the black screen, then shoved it back in his pocket with obvious frustration. Maya watched him approach the station window. Through the glass, she heard fragments of conversation. "I need gas, but the card reader's down," the clerk said, pointing to a handwritten sign. "Cash only after 9 p.m. The massive man patted his vest frantically, checked every pocket twice. "I don't have cash. My wallet's gone. Someone must have taken it at the bar." "Sorry, man. Can't help you." Maya saw the exact moment desperation replaced anger on the stranger's face. He stared at his dead phone, then back at his motorcycle, then toward the dark road leading out of the city. "My mother's at County General," she heard him say to himself. "She's dying and I'm not going to make it." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Here was another person racing to reach someone they loved at the same hospital where Mrs. Patterson was waiting for her. Maya looked at her dollar bill, then at her gas gauge, then at this terrifying stranger who suddenly seemed more human than monster. 2 people needed to get to the county general tonight. 2 emergencies, $1. Maya had a choice to make. She could use her dollar for her own gas, reach Mrs. Patterson, but leave this stranger stranded. Or she could help him reach his dying mother and figure out her own way to the hospital later. Every rational thought told her to mind her own business. This man looked like he could hurt her. This man belonged to a world that had nothing to do with hers. This man should be able to solve his own problems. But Maya heard her grandmother's voice in her head. Baby, when someone needs help and you can give it, you give it. That's what separates us from the animals. Maya took a deep breath and walked toward the most dangerous-looking person she'd ever seen. What happened next would change both their lives in ways neither could possibly imagine. What happened next would haunt Maya for months, until she finally understood why this moment mattered more than any decision she'd ever made. Maya's legs felt concrete as she approached the Hell's Angel. Up close, he was even more intimidating than she'd imagined. 6'4", easily 250 pounds of pure muscle. His leather vest was covered in patches that told stories she didn't want to understand. Oakland chapter, 1% air, a skull and crossbones earned in blood. But what stopped Maya in her tracks wasn't the tattoos snaking up his neck or the scars on his knuckles. It was his eyes, raw, desperate fear that she recognized because she'd felt it herself. "Excuse me," Maya said, her voice barely audible. The man turned, and Maya instinctively stepped back. His face was weathered, probably mid-40s, with a graying beard and eyes that had seen too much. He looked at her with genuine surprise, like no stranger had voluntarily approached him in years. "Are you talking to me?" His voice was rough, but not threatening. "I heard you say something about your mother. At the hospital?" Something shifted in his expression. He really looked at Maya, took in her work uniform, her worn sneakers, the single-dollar bill clutched in her trembling hand. "Yeah, but—" He shook his head. "You don't need to worry about me, lady." "How much do you need for gas?" The question hung between them like a bridge Maya wasn't sure she wanted to cross. "Look, I appreciate the thought, but I can't take money from someone who obviously doesn't have it to spare." His voice was gentler now, almost protective. Maya glanced at her Honda, its gas gauge deep in the red zone. Then she looked at this massive man who could probably take anything he wanted from her, but was refusing her help instead. "My name's Maya Johnson," she said. "What's yours?" "David." "David Davidson." He paused like he almost said something else. "Maya, you seem like a good person, but I'm Hell's Angels. You understand what that means?" Maya nodded. "I understand you're someone's son, and your mom's in the hospital." David stared at her for a long moment. "She raised me alone after my dad died in a construction accident. Worked 3 jobs to keep food on our table. Tried to keep me out of trouble, but I found trouble anyway." His voice grew heavy with regret. "Joined the Angels when I was 18. Broke her heart. We didn't talk for almost 10 years because of the choices I made." Maya listened without judgment, seeing the pain in his eyes. 2 months ago, she called me. Cancer, stage 4. We started talking again, trying to make up for lost time." David's voice cracked. "Tonight she had a stroke. The doctors say if I don't get there in the next hour, I might not get to tell her I'm sorry for all the years I wasted being angry." Maya felt tears sting her eyes. This wasn't about Hell's Angels or scary patches or criminal stereotypes. This was about a son who might lose his mother before making peace. "I was on a club ride up in Napa when I got the call," David continued. "Lost my wallet at our last stop, probably pickpocketed while I wasn't paying attention. The phone died on the ride back. The nearest ATM is broken and everywhere else is closed." He gestured helplessly at his beautiful motorcycle. "I've got maybe 2 gallons left in the tank, not enough to make it 50 miles to County General." Maya looked at her dollar bill. $1 would buy maybe half a gallon of gas. Not much, but maybe enough to get him closer, close enough to figure out the rest. "Take it," Maya said, extending the crumpled bill. David stared at the money like it was a lifeline. "Maya, that's your last dollar, isn't it?" She nodded. "What about you? How are you getting wherever you need to go? I'll figure something out." "No." David shook his head. "I can't take your last money. That's not right." "Your mom is dying," Maya said simply. "My problems can wait. Hers can't." David looked at Maya with an expression she couldn't read. Wonder, maybe. Disbelief that someone would sacrifice for a stranger. He accepted the dollar with hands that shook slightly. "Maya Johnson," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I will never, ever forget this. You're giving me the chance to hold my mother's hand one last time." "Then go," Maya said. "Don't waste time talking to me. Go tell her you love her." David walked to his bike, pumped exactly $1 worth of gas into the massive tank. It barely moved the needle, but it was something. He climbed onto the Harley, kicked it to life with a roar that echoed across the empty lot. Before leaving, he reached into his vest and pulled out a small patch. Not an official Hells Angels insignia, but something personal. A phone number was written on the back in permanent marker. "Maya, if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call this number. What you just did, it's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for me." "Just get to your mom," Maya said. David nodded, revved his engine, and disappeared into the night, his taillight growing smaller until it vanished completely. Maya stood alone under the fluorescent lights, holding an empty wallet and watching the road where David had disappeared. She'd just given her last dollar to a Hells Angel she'd never see again. Her rational mind screamed that she'd made a terrible mistake. That dollar represented tomorrow's bus fare, her only way to get to work. Without it, she'd have to walk 8 miles each way, risking being late, risking getting fired. But her heart felt lighter than it had in months. Maya returned to her Honda and turned the key. Nothing. The engine didn't even try to turn over this time. She was officially stranded at a gas station with no money, no gas, and no way to reach Mrs. Patterson. She pulled out her phone to call a cab, then remembered she didn't have money for that either. Maya started walking toward County General, 12 miles away in the darkness. Her feet hurt before she reached the first mile marker, but she kept going. Mrs. Patterson was waiting. Mrs. Patterson needed to see a familiar face. As Maya walked through the empty streets, she thought about David racing through the night to reach his dying mother. She hoped that dollar had been enough to get him there. She hoped he'd made it in time to say goodbye. Maya had no idea that the decision she'd just made would bring someone to her door tomorrow who would change her life forever. She just knew that tonight, she'd done the right thing. And sometimes, doing the right thing is its own reward. What Maya didn't know was that David had just made it to his mother's bedside with minutes to spare, and he was already making plans that would change her life forever. Maya's 12-mile walk to County General took 3 hours. Her feet were blistered by the time she reached the hospital's automatic doors at midnight. She found Mrs. Patterson in room 314, looking small and fragile. The elderly woman's face lit up when Maya appeared. "Maya, sweetheart," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "I knew you'd come. The nurses said visiting hours were over, but I told them my granddaughter would find a way." Maya took her hand gently. The fall had been minor, a sprained ankle and bruised ribs. Mrs. Patterson would recover completely. "You walked here, didn't you?" Mrs. Patterson asked, noticing Maya's exhausted state. "Family shows up," Maya said simply. At dawn, Maya faced another 12-mile walk home. No car, no money for a cab, no friends to call. Halfway home, a black motorcycle pulled up beside her. But this wasn't last night's scene. The man climbing off wore an expensive business suit, polished shoes, and looked completely transformed. It took Maya a moment to recognize David. "Maya Johnson?" He looked professional, sophisticated. Only his voice remained the same. "David, you look different. I wanted to thank you properly." He handed her a white envelope. Inside, $100 bills and a handwritten note. "Maya, because of your kindness, I made it to the hospital with 20 minutes to spare. I got to hold my mother's hand as she passed peacefully this morning. I got to tell her I loved her, and that I was sorry for all the wasted years. You gave me the greatest gift anyone can give, the chance to say goodbye. This can never repay what you did, but please accept it with my deepest gratitude. David Davidson." Maya read the note twice, tears filling her eyes for David's loss. Then she folded the money back and pushed it toward him. "I can't take this." David looked shocked. "Maya, you don't understand. I researched you last night. You're facing eviction. Your car broke down. You walked 12 miles to help someone who isn't even family. This money could solve everything." "I didn't help you for money," Maya replied. "I helped you because you needed help. But Maya, you have no idea who I am. I'm the CEO of Davidson Technologies. That $1,000 is nothing to me, but what you gave me was priceless. Then we're even, Maya said. You got to say goodbye to your mom. I got to help someone who needed it. No money required. David stared at her in amazement. I've never met anyone who turned down money they desperately needed. Then you've been hanging around the wrong people, Maya said with a smile. David laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd heard from him. Maya Johnson, I have a proposition for you. Not charity, not guilt money, but a real opportunity. Maya studied his transformation from Hell's Angel to executive. What kind of proposition? The kind that could turn your kindness into something bigger than either of us imagined. Are you free for lunch today? Maya realized her $1 decision had opened a door she never knew existed. But David Davidson wasn't just any Hell's Angel, and his proposition would reveal a secret that could transform Maya's entire understanding of wealth, power, and brotherhood. That morning, Maya Googled David Davidson CEO on her cracked phone screen. What she found made her question everything she thought she knew about the man who'd asked her to lunch. David Davidson, 46, CEO and founder of Davidson Technologies. Net worth, $2.3 billion. The company created software for hospitals and nonprofits, employing over 3,000 people nationwide. But the photos showed a clean-shaven man in expensive suits. No mention of motorcycles. Nothing about Hell's Angels membership. The two versions of David seemed like completely different people. Maya dug deeper, finding obscure motorcycle magazine interviews where David mentioned his weekend brotherhood and staying connected to real people. One quote stood out. The boardroom teaches you about power. The road teaches you about humanity. A Forbes article described his unconventional leadership style and mysterious Saturday disappearances. Employees called him demanding but fair, someone who remembered every worker's name and story. Over the next few hours, Maya noticed strange coincidences. Her landlord called, saying someone had paid her overdue rent anonymously. Pine Grove's director mentioned a generous donation that covered Mrs. Patterson's entire medical bill. Henderson's Diner received its biggest catering order ever, a corporate event for 200 people. Maya suspected David's involvement but couldn't prove anything. At 1 p.m., Maya arrived at the address David had given her, a small family restaurant in her own neighborhood. She expected to find him in CEO attire, but instead, David wore simple jeans and a plain t-shirt, looking surprisingly normal. I wanted to meet on your turf, he explained. Not some fancy downtown place where you'd feel uncomfortable. Maya studied his face, trying to reconcile the Hell's Angel from last night with the billionaire from this morning with the regular guy sitting across from her now. David, I have to ask, who are you really? David smiled. That's exactly what I want to talk to you about. Maya, I need to tell you something about my company that never makes it into the Forbes articles. He slid a folder across the table. Davidson Technologies isn't just about software. For the past 3 years, we've been developing something called the Community Heroes Initiative. Maya opened the folder, seeing documents that made her pulse quicken. We identify people who consistently help others despite facing their own struggles. People like you. Then we offer them resources to amplify their impact in ways they never imagined possible. What kind of resources? David's expression grew serious. The kind that could change your life and give you the power to change thousands of others. But first, I need you to understand something about why I really ride with the Hell's Angels. Maya leaned forward, sensing that whatever David said next would explain everything. The truth about David Davidson's double life would shock Maya more than his wealth ever could, and reveal a secret that would change everything she thought she knew about helping others. Maya studied the documents in the folder. Everything looked legitimate. Scholarship programs, community health initiatives, business development grants. But something nagged at her. David, this is incredibly generous, but I have to ask, why does a tech billionaire care so much about finding good people in poor neighborhoods? David's expression shifted. The confident CEO facade cracked, revealing something vulnerable underneath. Because I used to be one of those people, Maya. And someone like you saved my life once. He leaned back in his chair, looking suddenly older. I wasn't born rich. I grew up 4 blocks from here in the Eastmont projects. My mother worked as a hospital janitor, pulling double shifts to keep food on our table after my dad died. Maya listened intently, seeing a completely different side of this complex man. By 16, I was running drugs for the local Hells Angels chapter. Not because I was tough, because I was hungry and angry, and they offered me brotherhood when I had nothing else. David's voice grew heavy with memory. When I was 18, I got arrested for aggravated assault, looking at serious prison time. My public defender was this young black woman, maybe 25 years old, working for legal aid. Maya felt something shift in the conversation's direction. She could have just processed my case like everyone else, but she didn't. Her name was Angela Williams. She stayed late, visited me in county lockup, helped me understand that I wasn't just throwing away my life. I was destroying my mother's last hope. David pulled out his phone, showing Maya a faded newspaper photo. A young black woman in a graduation cap and gown, smiling confidently. Angela convinced the judge to give me community service instead of prison. But here's the thing. She did it for free. She was making barely $30,000 a year, could have taken a corporate job for triple the salary, but she chose to fight for people like me. Maya stared at the photo, recognizing something familiar in Angela's determined expression. She saw past what I looked like, past my mistakes, past everyone else's assumptions about what a Hell's Angel could become. Just like you did last night. What happened to her? Maya asked, though she dreaded the answer. David's voice broke slightly. 3 years after she saved me, Angela was killed by a drunk driver, 28 years old. She was driving home from the legal aid office at midnight, working late on another case, another kid who needed someone to believe in them. He slid the newspaper clipping toward Maya. The headline read, "Legal Aid Attorney Dies in Traffic Accident." By then, I'd already started my company, was making good money, but I never got to thank her properly. Never got to show her what her faith in me had created. Maya felt tears building as the pieces clicked together. The Community Heroes Initiative isn't just about finding good people, Maya. It's about making sure that people like Angela, people like you, don't die unrecognized and unrewarded for the lives they change. David's voice grew emotional. Angela saved me when she had every reason not to. You helped me when you had every reason to be afraid. I can't bring Angela back, but I can make sure your story ends differently. Maya processed this revelation. So this isn't really about me at all. This is about honoring her memory. No, Maya, this is about honoring both of you. David leaned forward intensely. But there's something else you need to understand about why I never left the Hells Angels. He pulled out another photo, this one showing a group of tattooed bikers in business suits, standing in front of a construction site. I didn't abandon my brothers when I got successful. I brought them with me. 17 members of my Oakland chapter now work for Davidson Technologies. We use the same values that drew us together, loyalty, brotherhood, protecting each other, but we've redirected them toward building instead of destroying. Maya stared at the photo in amazement. Every Saturday, we still ride together. But now we ride to build wheelchair ramps for disabled veterans. We organize toy drives for kids in foster care. We provide security for women's shelters. We mentor at-risk teenagers who remind us of who we used to be. David's voice filled with pride. The same brotherhood that taught me violence also taught me loyalty. Angela Williams showed me how to redirect that loyalty towards something bigger than myself. Maya felt her worldview expanding. You're using your wealth and your club connections to lift up people like Angela helped you. Like we both came from, David corrected. The difference is I got lucky breaks. You create your own breaks by choosing kindness over self-preservation. He opened another folder, revealing documents that made Maya's breath catch. Maya, Davidson Technologies employs 43 former gang members, 67 people with criminal records, and 156 people who grew up in poverty. We pay above market rate and provide free education benefits because we understand that potential doesn't always come in the packages society expects. Maya realized she was looking at something unprecedented, a Fortune 500 company built on second chances and genuine brotherhood. Last night, when you approached me at that gas station, I saw Angela in you. The same willingness to help someone society told you to fear. The same choice to see humanity instead of stereotypes. David slid a final document across the table, a contract that would change Maya's life forever. This isn't charity, Maya. This is Angela Williams's legacy. filtered through everything the Hells Angels taught me about loyalty, and invested in someone who proves that kindness isn't weakness. It's the strongest force in the world. Maya stared at the contract, realizing that her $1 decision had connected her to a story much bigger than she'd ever imagined. Maya's decision would determine not just her future, but whether Angela Williams' legacy would live on or die with her memory. Maya stared at the contract, her hands trembling slightly. The weight of Angela's story, David's transformation, and her own struggling reality crashed together in her mind. "David, I need to understand exactly what happens if I sign this." David opened a comprehensive portfolio. "First, you start nursing school at UCSF next month. Full scholarship, all expenses paid. But this isn't just about getting your degree." He showed her detailed architectural plans. "We're building a state-of-the-art community health clinic right here in East Oakland. You'll do your clinical rotations there, learning from some of the best doctors in California." Maya studied the blueprints. The facility was beautiful, modern, welcoming, designed specifically for families who'd never felt comfortable in traditional medical settings. After graduation, you become the clinic's community health director. Not just a nurse taking orders, but the person who designs how we serve this neighborhood. You'll have a team of nurses, social workers, and outreach specialists working under your direction. David's enthusiasm was infectious. "But Maya, that's just the beginning. We want you to help us replicate this model nationwide. You'd travel to underserved communities across the country, training other women like you to become health leaders in their own neighborhoods." He showed her a map dotted with planned locations. Detroit, Newark, Phoenix, New Orleans, Birmingham, all places where someone with your heart and training could transform thousands of lives. Maya's head spun. "You're talking about a career I never dreamed was possible. Your starting salary as community health director would be $85,000 annually, plus full benefits and continuing education budget. But here's what makes this different from a regular job. You get equity in the initiative." "Equity? If our community health model succeeds, if it gets adopted by other healthcare systems or receives government funding, you share in that success. This could make you financially independent for life, Maya. Not just comfortable, truly wealthy." David revealed another document. "We're also establishing the Angela Williams Foundation for Legal Justice, reforming public defense systems. As a founding board member, you'd help select which young public defenders receive support similar to what you're getting." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "You're creating an entire network of people lifting each other up. That's exactly what Angela would have wanted. She believed broken systems could be fixed by people who understood brokenness from the inside." David showed her a video message on his tablet. A distinguished black woman in her 60s spoke directly to the camera. "Maya, David has told me about your compassion and potential. I'm Dr. Patricia Hayes, former Surgeon General of California. I grew up in poverty in Los Angeles and would be honored to mentor you through this journey." Maya was overwhelmed. "You're offering me personal mentorship from one of the most respected healthcare leaders in the country?" "Starting today, we're also providing immediate life stabilization," David continued. "Safe apartment near campus, reliable transportation, healthcare coverage, and a living stipend so you never have to choose between studying and surviving again." He handed her a credit card. "$5,000 monthly for living expenses? We want you focused on learning and growing, not counting pennies." David opened a detailed timeline. Year 1, complete nursing prerequisites while working part-time with our construction team, learning project management. Years 2 through 4, nursing school with summers spent in community health internships nationwide. Year 5, launch the Oakland Clinic as its director. Years 6 through 10, expand to 10 additional cities, train 100 community health leaders. Maya stared at the timeline. "By my 35th birthday, I could be overseeing healthcare for hundreds of thousands of people?" "But I need to be honest." David's tone grew serious. "This isn't easy. You'll be scrutinized as the face of this initiative. People will say you don't deserve these opportunities, that it's charity or tokenism. You'll carry the weight of proving that investing in people like us actually works." Maya nodded, understanding the pressure. "There's one more thing," David said. "Remember how I mentioned Hells Angels members working for my company? 12 of them are former Oakland chapter brothers who now mentor at-risk kids. The same brotherhood that taught me violence also taught me loyalty. I've just redirected that loyalty toward building instead of destroying." He showed her photos of tattooed men in business attire, teaching computer skills to inner-city teenagers. If you accept this opportunity, you won't just represent yourself or even honor Angela's memory. You'll prove that broken systems can be healed by people who understand brokenness intimately. David closed all the folders and looked Maya directly in the eye. I can't make this decision for you. I can only tell you that Angela Williams took a risk on an angry kid who'd given her no reason to believe in him. Last night, you took a risk on a Hell's Angel who'd given you every reason to be afraid. He paused. Both risks paid off in ways the risk-takers never lived to see fully. Now I'm asking you to take a risk on yourself. Maya looked around the small restaurant where she'd eaten countless cheap meals, at the neighborhood where she'd struggled for years, at the contract that could lift her out of poverty forever. But more importantly, she saw the possibility of becoming someone who could lift others, someone who could turn her experience with struggle into expertise in solving it. David, if I sign this, I'm not just accepting help. I'm accepting responsibility to help others the way Angela helped you, the way you're helping me. David nodded solemnly. That's exactly right. The question is, are you ready for that responsibility? Maya picked up the pen, knowing her signature would change not just her life, but potentially thousands of others. She thought about Angela Williams, who died before seeing the full impact of her compassion, and realized she was being offered the chance to complete a story that began with faith and could end with transformation. What happened next proved that $1 and one signature could transform an entire community and create ripples that would spread far beyond anything Maya had ever imagined. 6 months later, Maya's personal transformation. Maya walked across the UCSF campus in crisp nursing student scrubs, carrying both medical textbooks and community health planning documents. Her old Honda had been replaced by a reliable Toyota Prius, practical for her new role visiting construction sites and community meetings. She lived in a bright one-bedroom apartment in Oakland's Temescal district, close enough to school but still rooted in her community. The walls displayed her nursing achievements alongside photos tracking the clinic's progress and a framed portrait of Angela Williams that David had given her. The ripple effect begins. Mrs. Patterson became the first recipient of the clinic's pre-opening services. Maya arranged visiting nurses, meal delivery, and social connections. Now, Mrs. Patterson led a pen pal program matching isolated seniors with nursing students, creating friendships that enriched both groups. Mr. Rodriguez received a small business loan to transform his coffee habit into a mobile cafe employing 3 formerly homeless individuals. He parked outside the construction site daily, providing updates to curious neighbors while serving workers and community members. Jennifer, Maya's former diner co-worker, enrolled in the medical assistant program Davidson Technologies sponsored. She'd already been hired as part of the clinic's opening staff, specializing in bilingual patient care for Spanish-speaking families. The clinic rises. The East Oakland Community Health Center transformed a vacant lot into something beautiful. Maya visited weekly wearing a hard hat labeled Community Health Director, working with architects to ensure every detail reflected neighborhood needs. On-site childcare, full-service pharmacy, mental health counseling, and a teaching kitchen for nutrition education. Local news covered the progress, from last dollar to healthcare leader Maya Johnson's inspiring journey. But Maya consistently redirected interviews toward the clinic's mission rather than her personal story. National recognition, Dr. Patricia Hayes introduced Maya at healthcare conferences as the future of community-based medicine. Maya presented their model to packed auditoriums, explaining how hiring local residents and addressing social barriers improved health outcomes dramatically. The approach attracted federal attention. The Department of Health and Human Services awarded a $3.2 million grant to replicate the Oakland model in 6 additional cities. Maya was named National Program Director at age 27. The Hells Angels Connection. David's Oakland chapter officially adopted the clinic as their primary community service project. Every Saturday, tattooed bikers volunteered, installing playground equipment, organizing supply drives, providing security for evening events, and mentoring teenagers who reminded them of their younger selves. Initially, residents feared the bikers, but they quickly discovered these were gentle giants who helped elderly people carry groceries, taught motorcycle safety to curious kids, and became unexpected community guardians. The partnership became a model studied by law enforcement and community organizations nationwide. Educational innovation. Maya developed a community health leadership curriculum for 3 local high schools. Students learned to identify neighborhood health disparities and design practical solutions, with the most promising projects receiving implementation funding. The program's first year produced remarkable results. A community garden supplying fresh produce to food-insecure families, a senior fitness program that reduced local diabetes rates by 18%, and a peer mental health network credited with preventing multiple teenage crises. The Angela Williams Foundation Impact. The Legal Justice Foundation honoring Angela's memory now funded 30 young public defenders annually. Maya served on the selection committee, choosing recipients based on their commitment to indigent clients rather than career advancement potential. One recipient, Maria Gonzalez, a young attorney in Phoenix, credited the foundation with enabling her to continue defending undocumented immigrants instead of switching to corporate law for financial survival. Corporate transformation. David's success story inspired other business leaders to examine their hiring assumptions. Davidson Technologies' second-chance employment practices were studied by Harvard Business School as a replicable model. 4 other Fortune 500 companies adopted similar programs, collectively hiring over 1,200 people with criminal backgrounds or poverty histories. The recidivism rate among their employees dropped to virtually 0. International recognition. The World Health Organization invited Maya to Geneva, where she addressed delegates from 60 countries about community-led healthcare innovation. Her core message resonated globally. Effective health systems must be designed by the people they serve. 2 African nations requested technical assistance implementing similar models in urban areas. Maya spent 3 months training local leaders, discovering that compassion and determination transcend cultural boundaries. Full circle moment. 2 years after that pivotal night, Maya returned to the same Shell station, now renovated with electric vehicle charging stations and a community resource board. She pumped gas into her Prius, marveling at the transformation. A young mother at the next pump counted the change worriedly. Maya approached her with genuine warmth. Need help with gas money? Instead of her last dollar, Maya handed the woman a clinic resource card. Free comprehensive health care starting next month. We're here for much more than gas. The woman accepted gratefully, recognizing Maya from local news coverage about the neighborhood girl who'd changed everything. Maya realized she'd become what David was that night. Someone with real power disguised as simple kindness. 3 years later, Maya would discover the most powerful truth about a single act of kindness, that it never truly ends but creates infinite circles of possibility. Exactly 3 years after the gas station encounter, Maya stood in the East Oakland Community Health Center's lobby during its grand opening. The ribbon cutting drew hundreds, patients, community leaders, healthcare professionals, and Hell's Angels in dress leathers. David cut the ribbon, but Maya focused on the faces around her, people whose lives intersected because of $1 given in trust. A teenage girl approached shyly. "Miss Johnson? I'm Emma Rodriguez, Mr. Rodriguez's granddaughter. I wanted to thank you." Maya knelt down, recognizing the family resemblance. "Thank me for what, sweetheart? For believing in my grandpa when nobody else would? He told me how you paid for his coffee when he was broke. Now his business is so successful, he's paying for my nursing school." Emma showed her UCSF acceptance letter. "I want to be like you, someone who helps people who can't help themselves." David joined them, wearing both his business suit and Hell's Angels pin. "Maya, I have something for you." He handed her a portfolio of handwritten letters, thank you notes from clinic patients, scholarship recipients, and community members whose lives had changed through her kindness. One letter stood out. "Dear Maya, my name is Dorothy Williams. Angela was my daughter. David told me how you honored her memory by accepting the opportunity she would have wanted. Thank you for keeping her spirit alive. Angela's mother." That evening, Maya sat in her office reviewing patient files. 3 years ago, she'd counted her last dollar. Tonight, she oversaw health care for 8,000 community members, managed a $4.2 million budget, and mentored 15 women training as community health leaders nationwide. Her phone rang. Dr. Hayes called with news. Maya, the White House wants to nominate you for the President's Council on Community Health Innovation. You'd help shape national healthcare policy. Maya realized the profound truth. Her dollar hadn't just bought gasoline, it had purchased a future connecting Angela Williams' sacrifice to thousands of lives. She picked up Angela's photograph. "I hope we're making you proud," she whispered. Through her window, she watched David teaching motorcycle safety to kids, his Hells Angels jacket over a community health champion t-shirt. Mrs. Patterson walked by with her pen pal group, carrying flowers for Angela's memorial garden. The girl who'd used her last dollar to help a dangerous stranger had become the woman who proved broken systems could be healed by people who understood brokenness, and that the most powerful investment wasn't in stocks or property, but in human potential disguised as everyday kindness. Maya's story proves that the smallest acts of courage can create the biggest changes. When we choose compassion over fear, when we see humanity instead of stereotypes, when we trust strangers who society tells us to fear, we don't just help one person, we start revolutions. Think about the angels in disguise around you, the person whose appearance makes you uncomfortable but whose need is real, the stranger whose story you don't know but whose pain you recognize. These moments of choice happen every day. Your kindness matters, your courage creates ripples, your willingness to see past surfaces can literally change the world. If Maya's story touched your heart, hit that like button to spread hope. Subscribe to see more stories proving ordinary people do extraordinary things when they choose love over fear. Share this with someone who needs to remember that Hell's Angels can be heroes, billionaires can be humble, and $1 given from an empty pocket can fill countless lives with possibility. Be the Maya who gives anyway.